Challenge the nation. Let us strive on to bind up the nation's wounds, to achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace. Lincoln understood that preserving the greatest experiment in self-government required more than winning a war. It required the character to restore what had been broken. More than 160 years later, America still faces division. The question is not whether we'll disagree. The question is whether we still have the wisdom and the character to heal together.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this hour of the Shaun Thompson Show is sponsored exclusively by DonleyAuctions.com. They need your guns. Sell for top dollar. DonleyAuctions.com.
From the streets of Melrose Park to the trading floor of the Merc, he's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other, he's Shaun Thompson. And this is the Shaun Thompson Show.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue. And when the band plays Hail to the Chief, ooh, they point the cannon at you. No, it ain't me. It ain't me.
Hi, Josh, thanks. All new at 5, Governor Ron DeSantis says he wants to label several groups as terrorist organizations under a new Florida law that just took effect. Governor DeSantis named the Council on American Islamic Relations, also known as CARE, the Muslim Brotherhood, and Antifa as groups that he's targeting. The law allows Florida law enforcement to recommend organizations for this label, but the state cabinet has to vote on it.
Now, I was smiling from ear to ear like every other Floridian, and there was only one person smiling just as much as I was. And that is my next guest, whose name I first heard in the 80s. We both had thicker hair. He had a job for Ronald Reagan. Frank Gaffney, how are you, my friend?
Well, I'm still beaming at what Governor DeSantis and the state of Florida have done, and I give you a lot of the credit for it.
Oh, thank you. I don't know if he listens to the show, but it might be. But one of the things that's fantastic is to see that for decades, as these organizations were under suspicion when the country had some form of dignity and integrity, and then the Obama years happened when we lost all forms of dignity and integrity, and those investigations were shelved. At least now, states can take action to keep out the global intifada, the jihadists, the cultists that pretend to be a religion versus what they are, America-hating saboteurs.
Well, at least one state can do that. I wish that more of them were following Florida's lead, but I'm prayerful as we embark upon a serious campaign. I call it Save Texas, Save America. Shaun, it will be the case that Texas will follow suit. It may not have the statute, in place for some months because they're not in session. They, as you may know, only allow the session to take place every 2 years, and only for 5 months at that, in the state of Texas. But look, the point is that Governor Greg Abbott, who actually took the step of designating the Muslim Brotherhood and the Council on American Islamic Relations as terrorist organizations and transcriminal ones at that, a month or so before Governor DeSantis did it, is well positioned, I believe, in these next 4 months to begin doing what that Florida statute envisions, and that is to begin rolling these guys up. We don't have time, frankly, because they are on the march, and the passage of month after month with essentially no action being taken to enforce these designations until now in Florida and hopefully soon in Texas. It's only having the effect of emboldening these various jihadist groups. And by the way, Shaun, as you know, they're communist allies. This so-called red-green axis is what we're up against, and either of them would be a problem. Both of them together are very, very dangerous indeed.
So you know what's fascinating, Frank, is that And by the way, we're opening up a can of whoop ass again on Iran, which is fantastic. I can't wait till it just annihilates every theocrat there, because there is no getting along with this kind of cult that it is. I hate to even give it the credibility of a religion. It isn't. The people who practice Islam and are not jihadists, okay, fine, I'll let you pretend you are one. However, Iran is a cult headquarters. It's not really a country. And when you look into the economics of it, it's a fracking punchline, Frank. Did you know that the GDP of Iran is 50% of what the revenue for Walmart is? Did you know that? And all of this nonsense, all of this poppycock, all of this strife, it's about time we realize, because I was very upset over the last couple of months, last 6 weeks, of hearing how all of a sudden they're no longer cultists and we're going to have an agreement. Anybody that knows anything about the cultists, no. There is no such thing as an agreement with somebody who doesn't believe in their hobgoblin nonsense. They don't want to have an agreement with us. They want to kill us. I love the fact that he's finally come to realize this, and I have yet to see the Ayatollah asshat's son. Is he still alive, or is he like Mitch McConnell?
Well, I think there are three of them that turned up at their at the old man's funeral the other day. But the one who is putatively the new supreme leader has not been seen since he was so designated, and he could be in full Mitch McConnell mode. I don't know.
It's fascinating to see how the so-called Americans, politicians, they're very timid on this topic. I mean, has anybody outside of Marco Rubio, or even perhaps a chance of Ted Cruz or Mike Lee, has anybody really talked about how ridiculous it was to pretend we had a memorandum of understanding? How the frack are you going to have a memorandum of understanding? Any contract needs somebody to understand the clauses and the concept of Western civilization and the rule of law. You can't have a memorandum of understanding with Iran, can you?
You absolutely cannot have a memorandum of understanding with any value, for sure, with this version of the Iranian mullahocracy. The president has been persuaded that this third string, or maybe fourth string, depending on who's counting, is sufficiently different to constitute regime change. I respectfully disagree. This is the same group. In some cases, people point out to them being worse than some of the others. But what is for sure is they still have one thing on their mind, and they've iterated it as they often do at any given opportunity: death to America.
Yeah.
That's what, in the intelligence business, they have a technical term for this. You may be familiar with it. It's called a clue.
Well, you know what's
a clue. They're trying to kill us.
Of course they are. They're trying to kill us. They're trying to kill our soldiers. In fact, they're trying to kill even people from that region that won't bend knee to their hobgoblin nonsense. And when you look at who they're telling us are leaderships, aside from answering the question of what would B. Arthur look like with a beard, these fracking idiots, how do we know what they are? What is their form of government? What is their economic scheme? Is there a title company? How are we pretending this is a country anymore rather than declaring it what it is? A prison island just like Cuba, a prison island just like Russia was, and this idea that we give it, the American government, gives it credibility. Not interested in an agreement with you. And if you even look at a ship in the Strait of Hormuz, we'll kill each and every one of you. Why isn't anybody saying that?
You know, it goes back to something you asked a moment ago. Why isn't anybody talking about any of these truths? And a few of us are. I think it's important to say. But in political life, fewer and fewer are. And partly that is because of the perception that it is politically suicidal to speak the truth about what's happening here. And we've got to fix that right quick, because what is suicidal is pretending that Sharia supremacism, and that's what I call all of these characters, whether they're Sunni or whether they're Shia, whether they're 12ers or whether they're, some other fashion. These are people who are absolutely convinced that their duty is to wage jihad until Sharia, their sort of strategy for conquest, is made supreme over the entire world. And it just happens that arguably the worst of the bunch are the 12ers who believe that in order to bring that about, they have to engage in the apocalypse. And to think that Americans, politicians and others in public life and positions aren't talking about that reality is malfeasance. And it really should be something that people are held accountable for in the strongest of terms. This is not going to end well if we persist in thinking that those who have these aspirations, those who actually say they want to bring death to America, and death, of course, to Israel as well, don't mean it, are folks who should be kept away from any kind of position of power and influence, permanently.
Yes, I know, but did you see this weekend? Did you see this weekend? I want to play this for you.
This is the Islamic Republic of New Yorkistan. Islam will be in every household. Inshallah, the whole world is Muslim.
This is going on in New York. This is going on in Detroit. This is going on in L.A., and shame on, and I mean this, shame on these idiots that not only are calling themselves Democrats, and they knew he was a global intifada cultist scumbag who lived with his mother and father before he became mayor. Shame on our FBI. What the frack are these guys? I mean, I understand during the Trump years and during the W years and the Clinton years. I mean, these are assets of the government. They don't want to do a fracking thing. They don't want to. I don't buy it for a minute, Frank. There are a couple people that want to do it. But for the most part, these guys are just trying to get the payday. And when you look at the fact that there are legions of enemies, of traitors, of potential terrorists, the vast majority, like Somalians in Minnesota, are on government sustenance. You look at Detroit, you look at these areas that claim to be the rise of Islam, they're all on welfare. How in the world have we allowed this to happen? And why isn't our law enforcement saying, these are jihadists in New York, we're arresting them?
I think there are a lot of factors that are contributing to it, but what is, again, completely unacceptable is we know where this leads. Don't take my word for it. Look at what is happening in country after country in Europe. And you see the same playbook, a little further along, but the same playbook that is now operating inside the United States as well. And we've chosen to turn a blind eye to it. Some have done it because they want votes or they want money or they don't want any trouble or some combination of the three. And thereby have allowed this problem to metastasize. And by the way, as I said, Shaun, it's accompanied by a similar kind of refusal to come to grips with the communists. The president's talking about this a lot now, but he has not spoken about the red-green axis, which is what I think we need to be truthfully describing to the American people and countering.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind when we talk about an economic philosophy, right? This is what we're talking about. When communism reared its head and destroyed Russia and turned it into the Soviet Union, when it destroyed Cuba and turned it into a prison island, wherever it's really touched, Venezuela, I don't care where you point, it's sold as an economic plan. The difference of, I think, why they're having a hard time making that connection. When you look at these theocracies, these ghetto areas in the Middle East, they have no economic plan. None. What's the economic scheme of Gaza? What's the taxation? What's the opportunity? Is there a business license? Where's the shopping district in Gaza, in Palestine, or in Iran? And Iran had the infrastructure, and now it has ghost shops. It's like a Democrat city in America. There is no real economic plan that's linked to this because it's not about any form of civilization. It is the absence of civilization. It is the absence of economic plan. The only people who have money are the ones attached to the government. Communists at least pretended to provide sustenance. Iran has watched its economy destroy itself over and over again, and they don't care. What is the economic plan? Does it have one?
The truth of the matter is this isn't about economics. I mean, they have, yes, Marxist, theory and all that. It's always been just about power.
Yeah.
It's just a pretext for gaining and exercising power. And if the state owns the means of production, that's just another means of obtaining and exercising power. But look, is there any hope for any of these, enterprises? Absolutely not. And the only thing that, we need to be mindful of is that we don't let them impose that kind of crap on us. And that's what they're set on doing.
What's funny is to watch. I went to Michigan for the 4th of July and talking to some of the people that are very familiar. I have relatives that are, stay out there for the whole year. Love it, love it, love it. And when you look at what's happened to that education system in Michigan, specifically these heavy areas, it gets you to think about how we, the decent Americans, have allowed the virtue shield of education to be used as an indoctrination camp against Americanism. And, you add up public schools in this country, it's more than we spend on defense. It's over $1 trillion. You add up what we spend on the welfare in this country, on what's called the social safety net, and you look at these areas, these Islamo-Nazi areas and these Democrat ghetto areas, these areas are where this money is spent. They're not spent the way they want you to believe, equal through the country. Absolutely not. These are the worst areas. These are the most religious, zealot, cultist, Islamo-Nazi areas. It's a staggering reality. 80% of Somalians are on welfare. Look at these temporary protected Haitians that have no affiliation with a religious cult, just a standard of living to steal from America. Look at what's going on in Detroit, in these Detroit areas. Same thing, 80%. In most cases, they have their phony wives as they have these religious ceremonies to get paid, where the wives are getting paid to take care of their own kids and their husband, and may have 6 or 7 wives. And you look at the housing vouchers, you're talking more than 50% of the American budget is used on phony education and entitlements that I say a very small percentage of actual Americans, qualified citizens, are receiving these benefits. So at a certain point, as the left always talks about money we spend on defense, we spend a fraction on defense that we do on our own destruction, on the safety nets that go to illegal aliens, people who hate us, and illiterates we pretend we educate. How do we reorchestrate this argument so people understand, without our money, Mogadishu real estate prices collapse in the same way the Middle East collapses, in the same way all these communist areas are, as these aliens, legal and illegal, are taking our entitlements back to their home country, and we need to stop this.
You bet we do. Look, I think the best way, and certainly the way that I think is most promising, is to make the case for doing something differently. Make the case for America. Make the case for the way we have traditionally operated. And that was not subsidizing people trying to destroy us, not welcoming them into our country, not otherwise empowering them to take down our country. Let me just give you one further example of this really dismal prospect. If we continue down this trajectory, Shaun, what we're going to find is electoral jihad, or election jihad, if you will, which is translating all of those kids, translating all of those huge families into very disciplined, very well-controlled block voting. And whether they're electing people who seek to impose Sharia upon us because they share that creed, that cult, if you will, or whether they're not Muslims, but they're people who have aligned with them for the expedient reason of getting votes or getting money or both, that is going to translate into power to push this country ever closer in directions that will look a lot like Mogadishu before we're done. That mustn't be allowed to happen. And, this week of the 4th of July, I think we need to be celebrating America, yes, but also recognizing that we must defend her. And that's where this campaign to Save Texas, Save America comes in. Check it out at bansharia.com.
You know what else is fascinating, Frank, is that as we speak, earlier today, a scumbag Democrat judge blocked our own DOJ in the quest to find out just who were the people that orchestrated the election theft in Fulton County alone. That dog hunts where they went in and grabbed the paperwork, those 2 fat pigs in Georgia, that sued Rudy Giuliani for his pinky ring and his Mercedes. They were guilty of exactly what he accused them of. When you look at the evidence that's come out now that dimwit in diapers and every thief Democrat has been thrown out of Washington, I've got clips here proving beyond the shadow of a doubt the election was stolen in Arizona. The election was stolen in Philadelphia. In fact, the election was stolen in the counties that stopped the count in order to figure the scam that they needed to have the plausible acceptability of an election recount after they turned it back on, and all of it was stolen, and we now have the evidence. The machines, Smartmatic, Dominion, all of it. It's all exactly what we thought. So am I going to hang my hat on the fact, well, these areas are going to change things from education? I don't think Chicago has ever had a legitimate election, ever. In my life, ever. They brag about stealing the 1960 presidential election. New York is second behind it. New Jersey is a joke. Look at that lipless CIA whore that became the governor of Virginia. That's the same kind of scandal, and everyone just move along. And, you know, I was looking at something that I know you'll remember, and I was laughing to myself. LBJ, when he becomes the senator from Texas in the 50s, and how they did the same thing. He was behind by 600 votes. They shut the election back. He won by 81 votes. And look at the scandal that LBJ was.
Dead people, as I recall, wasn't it?
It's the same.
A lot of graveyards voted.
And you notice how all these Republicans, the scumbag Republicans, are slow walking the SAVE Act. Without that SAVE Act, it's game over. And the only answer is get your ass and your family that you love to decent states because they like it this way. When I say they, I'm talking about Democrats. They love it, man. I know them my whole life. They just want something for nothing. So we got to get away from them, don't you think?
Or your thing for nothing. That's more like it.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, Maggie Thatcher talking about that's the problem with socialism is you run out of other people's money. Yeah. Look, I think there's a lot to be said for states that are pro-freedom. I'm just telling you, we're working hard to make sure that Texas remains one of them because it is being targeted big time by this red-green axis. And if we don't use this next 4 months, Shaun, to form up and to push back come those elections, not only are we likely to lose them, but we're likely to see our country lost.
I'm going to give you some.
I'm
going to give you some optimism. You know, I've been in the real estate. I've been in the real estate business a while, but I'm paying attention even longer. And it's funny to watch the cycles in real estate, right? The ebbs and flows. What happens? They pretend it's seasonal, but it's more economic, right? And I lived through a lot of it. What I have seen in the last month and a half, and just the uptick in people that are on the hunt now, and you look at the reality of what people are experiencing in these Democrat hellholes. You know, my very own 57 new taxes in Illinois, $77 billion raised in these taxes. They're now funding ghettos and they're gaming and the video poker machines and dope are the only businesses opening up. Legacy businesses that have been in this state for 100 years are fleeing. If you could focus that on getting people to go to Texas and specifically the areas you're talking about and shore up those good areas. If you could do it in Tennessee, if you could do it in any of the 11 states that make up 70% of our GDP and 100% of the money being onshored, $19.2 trillion since Donald Trump has been in office. Now you've got exactly what you need. You've got the good people whose vote is being stolen from them in Illinois and New York and Philly. You pick an area. And now they're going to go to Texas where they can legitimize it. It's going to be the good versus bad the way it always is. Only in those states, the good have a chance because they're the majority. They don't have their elections stolen the way it's been going for 100 years in Illinois and New York and California. That's what we should start to market. An actual housing, help everybody do everything. Find the house, get the insurance, make it easy for good people to leave bad areas. Don't you think that's a good way to shore up the vote?
I think it can be. But you got to hustle. And you got to organize, and you've got to fight back against those who are already there and are trying to take it the other way. I mean, turn Texas purple is a thing, actually, en route to turning it blue. It's hard to believe, but they've lost the cities across that state already to the blue. It's not as bad as some of the places you just mentioned, but it's bad enough. And when you overlay on top of that the jihadist elements in Houston, Dallas-Fort Worth, it's getting critical. So the window is narrow. That's what I'm trying to say, and it's closing fast. We need to do what you're talking about right quick.
Gaffney Moving and Real Estate Company, accompanied by Liberty Real Estate Services. Come on, I'm halfway there. We'll do it, Frank. We can do it. Shaun and Frank take on the world. I appreciate you always making time for me and bringing decades of wisdom and, moreover, decades of loving your country and patriotism and winning. Frank Gaffney, thanks for always making time for me, brother.
God bless you, my friend. Always a privilege. Bye.
You too. We'll be back with your calls and comments.
This is the Shaun Thompson Show on AM 560. The Answer.
Joint pain is awful when you're the person fighting through it, but I'm betting you aren't the only one affected. Maybe you love someone who struggles with joint pain. It's summer, time to be outside, moving and playing. But you or your loved one is sitting it out again. Hey, it's Dan Proft here. Get your life back. Talk with my friends at QC Kinetics. That's what's happening every day at QC Kinetics. Patients are finding real relief in their hips, knees, shoulders, and backs thanks to regenerative treatment done in the office by Dr. Caravelli and the QC Kinetics medical team. No surgery, no long recovery, just real relief. Inflammation eases, the pain lets go. I've seen the results. QC Kinetics patients are happy and wish they would have done it sooner. If you're living with chronic joint pain and want an alternative to surgery, contact my friends at QC Kinetics, longtime sponsors of AM 560. Consultations are free. Weekend appointments are available. Schedule an appointment today by calling 312-827-6261. Again, 312-827-6261. Once more, that phone number, 312-827-6261.
The following contains a celebrity impersonation.
Mr. President, we're seeing reporting that air conditioning systems are failing as temperatures rise. What is your response?
I said, don't wait. People wait until the last second, then suddenly it's hot and nothing works. I understand this stuff probably better than anybody.
Mr. President, why hasn't the White House issued any guidance?
I gave perfect guidance. Call Air Right Heating and Cooling. That's the guidance. If people followed it, we wouldn't even